My daughter-in-law, Kristen, served the pie before I even sat down. She didn't just serve it, she performed it. She set a slice in front of her mother, then her sister, then her sister's husband. She made 2 trips from the kitchen, her hands full of plates, her eyes fixed on anything but me. I sat there, watching her shadow move back and forth across the dining room wallpaper. The expensive silk weave wallpaper, I had wired them $8,000 to install last summer. When the table was full and the forks were already moving, she finally turned to me. Her smile was like a fluorescent light, bright but cold. "Oh, Lorraine, we weren't sure if you'd want any. You mentioned watching your sugar, right?" I looked at her. I had mentioned my sugar once, 8 months ago. She wasn't protecting my health. She was erasing my seat at the table. I looked at the pie. Butter tart filling. The smell of it usually felt like a hug from my late husband, Harold. Tonight, it felt like ash. I looked at my son, Warren. He was already eating. He understood structures as an engineer, yet he failed to see the one crumbling right in front of him. I stood up. My bad hip gave a sharp, biting protest. "I think I'll head home," I said. Kristen just nodded. Warren looked up, guilt flashing like a distant signal fire. But he didn't put down his fork. I walked out. I drove home in a silence so thick I could almost feel it on my skin. 12 minutes. On the 4th minute, I passed the park where Harold used to take Warren to play baseball. I remembered Harold's old leather glove, the way he'd oil it every spring. On the 8th minute, I passed the bakery where the butter tarts actually came from. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. I wasn't just driving away from a dinner. I was driving away from a version of myself that I no longer recognized. The quiet Lorraine. The I don't want to be a burden Lorraine. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the house Harold and I bought in 1987 looked like a fortress of solitude. I sat in the car for 5 full minutes after turning off the engine, just listening to the metal cool. I realized then, you can't lose someone who has already stopped looking for you. That night, I didn't go to bed. I went to the attic. I found a small cedar box Harold had kept. Inside was the original deed to this house and a scrap of paper from 1987. It was a note Harold wrote to me the day we moved in. It said, "Lorraine, this roof will always be over your head, and your heart will always be the center of this home. Never let anyone move your chair." I cried then. Not for the pie. I cried because I had spent 2 years letting Kristen move my chair into the hallway, into the garage, and finally, out the front door. Harold's cancer had been fast, pancreatic. They call it merciful, but there was no mercy in a silent house. After he died, I became porous. I let things slide because I was afraid that if I spoke the truth, I'd be completely alone. But sitting on that cold attic floor, I realized I was already alone. And being alone with your dignity is better than being tolerated with a fake smile. 3 weeks later, I ran into Kristen's mother, Diane, at the market. Diane is the grandma, the one who is at every school play, the one who doesn't watch her sugar. "Oh, Lorraine," Diane said, her voice dripping with that staged pity. "We missed you at the kids' soccer game. Kristen said you were feeling overwhelmed lately. Old age is a thief, isn't it?" I stopped my cart. I looked at Diane, really looked at her. "I'm not overwhelmed, Diane," I said, my voice as steady as a mountain stream. "I'm focused. There's a difference. And tell Kristen that the next time she wants to discuss my health, she should do it to my face, not behind a slice of pie. Diane's face went pale. The quiet Lorraine had just vanished, and in her place was the woman who had managed a law firm for 30 years while Harold built bridges. I walked away, feeling lighter with every step. I took that energy to the library, to Calvin. Calvin was 53, with hands the size of dinner plates and a heart that was terrified of a book. "I'm on page 42, Mrs. L," he told me one Tuesday, his voice trembling with pride. He was reading Charlotte's Web. We got to the part where Wilbur says, "Why did you do all this for me? I don't deserve it. I've never done anything for you." And Charlotte replies, "You have been my friend. That in itself is a tremendous thing." Calvin looked up at me, tears in his eyes. "I never knew books could say what I feel," he whispered. That was the moment I stopped waiting for Warren to call. I had Calvin. I had Bet. I had a purpose. I wasn't just a grandmother waiting for a crumb of attention. I was a teacher. I was a person. In October, I made the move. I didn't ask if I could come for Christmas. I announced that I was hosting. "I'm using the blue English china, Warren," I told him over the phone. "The turkey is already ordered. I'd love for you to be there, but if you can't make it, I understand. Bet and Calvin will be here, and we'll have plenty of pie." There was a long silence on the other end. Warren wasn't used to me having a plan B. Christmas Eve was -16 degrees. The Ottawa wind was a beast, but my house was a glow of orange and gold. I spent hours brining that turkey. I made the butter tarts myself. Extra sugar, extra butter, exactly the way Harold liked them. When Kristen walked in, she looked like she had walked into a trap. She saw the table. My seat was at the head. Not in the corner, not near the kitchen door. At the head. After dinner, Warren found me by the fire. Hazel was asleep under Harold's old quilt. "Mom," he started, his voice cracking. I saw the note in the attic when I was helping you move things years ago. I forgot about it. I forgot about who you were before Dad died." "I forgot too, Warren," I said. "But I remembered. I built this night so you could see that I'm not just a guest in your life. I am the woman who built the life you are living now." He apologized. Truly apologized. It wasn't about the pie anymore. It was about the 2 years of silence he had allowed.